They could easily be carrying weapons. They could easily be carrying goods for many extremists. Israel is surrounded by extremist terrorist groups. And we've seen Hezbollah's actions in Lebanon, and the fact that Lebanon, as described by the Israeli government, remains in a state of hostility. That is the actual quote, a state of hostility with Israel. So there is Lebanon with all of the weapons aimed at Israel, and that's why it is so vital that we always say Israel has the right to protect herself. Now, the Israeli ambassador to the UN has written to the UN Secretary General, making it clear that Israel reserves the right to protect herself by preventing these ships from violating the naval blockade, and calling upon the Lebanese government to act responsibly and prevent these vessels from going directly into the Gaza Strip. This will make Israel's life impossible and the lives of the Israeli citizens impossible unless Israel, again, this is my mantra, unless Israel is allowed the right to protect herself. And in light of the threats that the Jewish state has been facing from multiple fronts, from state sponsors of terrorism and their proxies, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, Syria, as well as the apologists that we have at the UN, apologists for these extremists, it's incumbent upon us in the United States to provide the necessary security support to our critical ally. Now, reportedly, when Prime Minister Netanyahu met recently with our Defense Secretary, Mr. Gates, he requested that the U.S. sell to Israel further military products to make sure that Israel can have this qualitative military edge. And I hope that that request was made, and I hope that Secretary Gates approves it, and I hope that we can do everything in our power to make sure that Israel has what she needs to protect herself. Late last year, I authored a letter signed by almost 180 members of Congress asking the President to fully implement our existing agreement to provide robust security assistance to the State of Israel. And I apologize. And as you know, yesterday's announcement was very welcome. It was an announcement that the U.S. will provide assistance for Israel's Arrow 3 ballistic missile defense system. And if you've been to Israel, they'd love to show this system to you. And it's welcome news that Israel is ready also to deploy the Iron Dome system to defend civilians against short-range missiles and rockets from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. And I'm the leading Republican co-sponsor of a bill authorizing assistance for Iron Dome, which the House just passed a little bit ago, and we hope that that will be implemented shortly. Now, I don't think that the United States should be rewarding the PLO. I don't think that we should be rewarding the person who we think is a moderate, Abu Mazen. God help us if he's a moderate. He continues to refuses to negotiate with Israel. He says one thing to the English language press, and then when you read the translations of what he's saying back home, it is totally different. He recently praised the mastermind of the massacre of the Israeli athletes at the Munich Olympics in '72. As you know, he just recently passed away, and he gave him a wonderful eulogy, and that is who Abu Mazen is. And also, I'm against the PLO offices here in Washington being allowed to fly the Palestinian flag and call itself General Delegation as if it's already a state. We should not be offering these kinds of gestures to a group that is not willing to sit and negotiate directly with Israel on peace. This week for CoSigners addressed to Secretary of State Clinton and asking her to reconsider that decision and instead send the right message, which is kicking the PLO out of the U.S. by supporting our ally Israel and by following U.S. laws and finally moving our embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, where it belongs. Israeli-Palestinian issues should be very clear. We should first demand accountability from the PA, and that's why I say that unless we know that they are actually dismantling their terrorist infrastructure, unless they are ending their anti-Israel incitement, we should not be continuing to funnel money, U.S. taxpayer money, to this organization. Make them work to earn it. Don't make this an entitlement program for the PLO. Which brings me, when you talk about anti-Israel incitement, the very casual segue would be, well, the UN. As you saw the Goldstone Report that was that called for persecuting Israel. And last March, we saw the UN Human Rights Council, what a misnomer, passing five more anti-Israel resolutions, none for Iran, none for Syria. They remain unscathed. Apparently the only human rights abuser in the world happens to be Israel. It is unbelievable that U.S. taxpayer dollars are going to this Human Rights Council. And I say, if you want to have it, let the other countries, this rogues gallery, let them fund the UN Human Rights Council. I don't want to be paying higher taxes that go to the UN Human Rights Council until that council is restored. Friday, the UN Human Rights Council appointed a so-called committee of experts, and this will be the new Goldstone Report. They're going to investigate Israel's defensive actions in response to the provocation by the organizers of the May 31 flotilla. So just as they attempted to embarrass and shame Israel with the Goldstone Report, now there's a new report that's going to be just started. They just voted on it on Friday. And that you kind of know that report is already written even before they start that investigation. So I think it's going to be another scathing attack on Israel, and I agree with the Prime Minister when he says that will be another Goldstone Report. And Israeli President Shimon Peres recently noted the UN has an anti-Israel majority, and UN's anti-Israel bias is a product of a broader lack of transparency, lack of accountability, lack of reform, and indeed the UN's recently departed internal auditor blasted the UN Secretary General just last week, saying that, quote, there is no transparency, there is lack of accountability, end quote, I do not see any sign of reform at the UN, end quote. This is their own auditor, their own Inspector General coming to that conclusion. So when I say that, that's hardly anything. Their own department is saying that. And that's why Ron and I are working on a bill, that's the UN Reform Bill, to make sure that we have accountability for your tax dollars in this incredible anti-Israel place called the UN. Let me just speak